to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. It is Cinco de Mayo, which is the day, that preview night for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has happened. So I've seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and again, like I did with No Way Home and with a few other movies, like Everything Everywhere All at Once and others, a few thoughts without spoilers for those of you who don't want to have the movie spoiled for you. And then, after that, spoilers abound. So, I think that of Marvel's movies that they've made under the Marvel Studios banner, meaning from Iron Man to, from Iron Man to, present, Multiverse of Madness, I think this is the first and only to, this is the only one to, have the fingerprints on it of the director. It's the only one that you can walk into the movie and watch the movie and be like, okay, visually I can tell this is very much Sam Raimi's movie. You can't go into any of the other ones. Like, I think if you walked into Avengers, I mean, you could probably tell from the dialogue that Avengers is Joss Whedon's, for better or for worse, but like, I'm talking in terms of the visual language of cinema, the only one that you can walk into and be, I feel like such an elitist prick when I say that, but the first movie that you can really be like, okay, this is very much Sam Raimi, that's this one. Very well directed, beautifully shot, a lot of really cool effects. I watched it in 3D, very worth it, and I'm not going to lie, part of seeing it in 3D was influenced by the fact that the Avatar trailer was going to be shown before it, and the Avatar trailer is just gorgeous. So, very much looking forward to Avatar when that comes out later this year. But as for this movie that we saw here, I feel like it's not going to be as divisive as Eternals. But I feel like people are going to be split on how good it is, and I feel like a lot of how good it is going to be based on the mileage beyond of what is going on, with, I would say, there's a sequence in the middle of a movie that is going to make or break your enjoyment of it. Not make or break your enjoyment of it, but then it's like, are you willing to put up with the amount of exposition that happens in this movie to get to that point? And that's part of the problem. Is that there is there is very much a lot of exposition in this movie. Because while this movie is set up by WandaVision and What If, you don't need to see those movies to understand what happens here, but there is a lot of exposition that goes into this movie to explain how the multiverse works, how traversing the multiverse works, how America works, and how America Chavez fits into all of that. And then, what the Darkhold is, how the Darkhold works, how the Book of the Vishanti works as the opposite of the Darkhold. There's a lot that goes into this movie in terms of just exposition of magical mumbo-jumbo that is kind of necessary for the movie to function. But at the same time, there's also a way to make this movie where you don't need all of that. And I feel like that would have, alleviated the problem a little bit. I feel like the exposition that is just dumped roundly at times is just awful. And I think that, it's one of those things where this could have been a much better movie if they found a way to more creatively, expound on that. The multiverse sequences are all awesome. Strange and America Chavez, we see a little bit of it in the trailer when they're going through the multiverse and they're going across universes, through glass. It's a really cool sequence. There's some really cool fights in the movie. But it is very much a Doctor Strange movie at the end of the day. So with that, we'll cut over to the spoiler part. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go out and see it. It's definitely worth your time. And it's, it's fun. If you like Sam Raimi, you'll like this movie, I feel like. You'll find a way to get through it. And it doesn't have that high barrier of entry that even I thought, and I'm someone who sat through WandaVision, and sat through What If, and sat through Loki, and sat through, Spider-Man and all of that. It's like, it's the kind of thing where, you know, you don't need to have seen all of that to understand it. So that said, we are going to play spoiler warning, and we're going to move into the spoiler territory. And I think that, number one, anyone who is familiar with me and familiar with how I feel about these kind of things will know what I'm about to say here. I really like that they did not cop out and make another villain besides Wanda. I mean, to an extent, the Darkhold is kind of partially the villain, because the Darkhold does have that hold on her. But at the same time, the fact that she, the fact that she, what's one here? The fact that she, you know, gives into it and is tempted by it and all of that, you know, she accepts that through the movie, and she is okay with it. And they do not shy away from unabashedly making Wanda the bad guy. There's a neat little House of M reference early in the movie when she's attacking Kamar Taj. And that's pretty cool how, because it's like she's trying to get in people's heads, and you just see her mouth come out from one side of the camera, and she whispers in his ear. It's a cool little callback. There's a lot of little callbacks like that in this movie. Like, during the Illuminati sequence, when they're at the Illuminati headquarters and all of that, when Professor X does everything about Professor X in this movie is Professor X from X-Men 97. Everything about it. And it is just so well done. And it's just like, at one point, they play the X-Men 97 theme at one point in the movie. You can hear it. When he is trying to reach out into her head, he puts his fingers on his forehead, and they do the waves that are coming out like they do in the show. It seems like that. And then on top of the fact that the X-Men 97 TV show is getting brought back, I think that these castings are going to stay. I think that, you know, because in the Illuminati sequence, and again, spoilers, I already put the spoiler warning, so if you're still listening, it's on you, but when we get to the Illuminati sequence and we get, you know, Captain Marvel from this universe is not Brie Larson and Carol Danvers, it is Lashana Lynch's Maria Rambeau. And that's a cool thing. And then we get, like, I feel like, you know, and then Black Bolt has his moment, and we get to see his powers on the screen, and, you know, they don't explain anything about him. It's just like, this is Black Bolt, he's the keeper of the Terrigenesis, and it's like, it's just cool that happened. And then when they show Reed Richards, that's, you know, like, the fact that they brought in John Krasinski for this, I think that when I say the casting is going to stick, that's the casting I think that's going to stick. I think he absolutely nailed it. I think it felt like this was him, like, getting an audition tape, you know, and getting the chance to play that on this screen and be like, I'm going to be, you know, this guy, and I want to take that chance. Like, obviously this iteration, because there is that moment that's kind of like the beginning of, It's not the beginning, like, toward the third act of X-Men Days of Future Past, when they do the massacre of all the heroes, and the Sentries come and just kill everyone. They kind of do that with the Illuminati, and it is it caught me off guard, and I think it caught a lot of people in the off guard too. It caught a lot of people in the theater off guard too, because there were a lot of like oh my god, like, because it is way more grotesque than I ever would have given it credit for. Like, I would have never, like, at one point it's like, you know, when it's the Illuminati, which is kind of like, I guess the Avengers are going to put it as for this universe, where it's, you know, Mordo, it's Black Bolt, it's Mr. Fantastic, it's Professor X, Captain Marvel, and Captain Carter. And it's like, you know, I think Captain Marvel has the least, over-the-top death, where it's just, she gets a statue dropped on her, like, but, like, Captain Carter gets ripped in half by her shield, and, like, Mr. Fantastic gets pulled apart like taffy, and then Black Bolt, she takes away his mouth, and he tries to scream, and he blasts the back of his head off. And it's just like, holy fuck. Like, I saw that, I was like, that is intense. it is truly something else, this movie, and it is the kind of thing where it's like, that is a sequence that I think is going to stick in people's heads in the movie. And I think that there's a reason why the two characters that got the least grotesque deaths are Mr. Fantastic and what's it called, and Captain Carter. I mean, while Captain Carter was, ripped in half, I think that, that it's likely that this is not the end of live action Haley Atwell as Captain Carter. So I don't think you can make a right on red there, and either way, I'm right here. You have to wait until I pass. But either way, I feel like a lot of the cutting to what was going on with, there were a few times that cutting to the what was going on in the Prime universe, which they called 616, and it got some scattered applause. What was going on there is less interesting, and also done at times where it's a little, not tonally jarring, but, a little out of place, where it's like, okay, so the Ultron Sentries are coming to get Strange and bring him to the Illuminati, okay, and then it cuts to what Wanda's doing, and it's not really giving any additional information, it's just kind of moving along, what we already knew was happening, so it doesn't really make it, like, it's not the kind of thing that, I would have done, but, one way or the other. I think the girl who plays America Chavez does a great job in the movie. She doesn't play it like an annoying kid actor. She's really doing a great job with the role. And she'll be back, I can guarantee that. I feel like it's, I think, I do stand by and say, I think that it is just sticking in your head, though, like, because the thing is, it's not even like the back of his head blows off, it's like, it kind of stays in but collapses in on itself. It is really fucked up. And it's like, there is a lot of, they lean into the horror on this one. Like, I remember when Doctor Strange was coming out in 2016, they were like, oh, this is going to be Marvel's first horror movie, get ready, it's Marvel's first horror movie, because he's going to deal with the paranormal and the supernatural, and all that kind of crap, and it's like, it really wasn't, though. Like, it really wasn't. Like, to say it was Marvel's first horror movie is a complete misrepresentation of, of what that movie was. So, this one feels like a horror movie. Like, it is, like, Child's first horror movie, but it is definitely a horror movie where the first Doctor Strange was not. What else is there to address with this? I talk about Wanda being the bad guy, and I think that, like, there is a lot of WandaVision there, and I know I said you don't really need to see WandaVision to understand this. There's a lot of WandaVision there, and again, you don't need to have seen it, because it's like, all you need to know is that Wanda had 2 kids, and that's kind of exposited in the movie, in the same way that, like, you can walk into Infinity War having not seen Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are pretty easily explained in the movie. And I do like also that they did not use Strange Supreme as it seemed was happening, because what they did was a lot more interesting, and I think that, I hope that that's not meant to be Strange Supreme, because they did kind of play it a little ambiguous, where it's like, when he asks what happened, and, the Strange of that universe just says, I lost, and he goes, oh, who did you lose to? And he doesn't answer. It's like, well, that you don't need to go any further than that. We don't need to see, like, it's not, it's like, did he fight, Thanos? Did he fight Kang the Conqueror? Because that could be very much who it was. It's like, we lost, who did you lose to? If it's an incursion, it's Kang the Conqueror. Especially with the first post-credit scene being what it is, where it's like, he has started an incursion. Doctor Strange started an incursion, and now here's Clea, played by fucking Charlize Theron of all people, and I'm like, wow, that is something. And I hope we get more of her. I really hope we get more of Clea. She is, and it's like they just nailed it, and going into the dark dimension, I'm all for it. The other thing I really wanted to address, Mordo. We don't see 616 Mordo in this movie at all. And based on what leaks were originally said, I think that makes sense, because the original use of Mordo they had was him going to Wanda's farm before in the cold open and getting beheaded by Strange and getting beheaded by Wanda. I feel like that's a poor use. However, I do have this problem where the way Doctor Strange ends, you don't get the indication that Strange knows Mordo's out there killing wizards. And there's nothing about this movie that indicates that. It's really more that the audience has the pre-existing notion that Mordo is the mortal enemy of Doctor Strange, and Mordo is the bad guy. Like, it is his Lex Luthor is Baron Mordo. And the fact that we, the audience, know that, it kind of influences what happens and the relationship that happens between him and this alternate Mordo. It's almost as if there's a second movie that came out in between, and the audience didn't see it. Like, there's a second movie in between that establishes that relationship, sets up the mutual hatred, and then goes, okay, so we're going to build off of that. Really, the only thing that really, establishes that is the audience bringing in what they know from the comics. And I think that that's kind of a misstep, especially if we're not going to see, Strange's Mordo in this movie to be able to be like, oh, okay, so that is established why that is. Another thing that gets mentioned in the movie, but I would have liked to have seen be explained a little bit further, or get a little bit of another get a little bit of another another explanation, like a deeper explanation, would have been the Thanos of it all, where it is the idea that in the movie, they addressed very early on, the cost of his choice when it came to defeating Thanos, and not even his choice, but his doing what was going to be done to defeat Thanos. The idea that if it's going to happen that, that he had to fight Thanos and he had to give up the Time Stone and half the universe had to be wiped out, like, was that really the case? And then we get to, we get to Earth 816, 832, I don't remember. But we get to the alternate world where the Illuminati is, and, the first thing he sees when he gets there is the statue of him, saying he died fighting Thanos. And then we see a flashback to Titan, where the Illuminati is standing around him, and we have the body of Thanos with his sword through his chest, and that's there, and he's discussing, and it's like, they defeated Thanos without him snapping, and it's a question that I would like to see reckoned with. It would be interesting to see that question dealt with in a meaningful way. Did he have to do that? Did he not take an alternate option because he would have been the one who died doing it, and instead he had Tony be the one to take the bullet instead of him? I think that's an interesting question to pose. It's just based on where this movie ends off with him using the Darkhold himself and then becoming corrupted by it slightly, and then moving into the him dealing with Dormammu in the next movie is what it seems like. Either Dormammu or Mordo, probably Dormammu, based on Clea and the Dark Dimension, or maybe it's just because he's been corrupted. He's going to go to the Dark Dimension and deal with it there. It's that kind of thing where I don't think this question is going to be fundamentally answered, and I feel like that's a disservice to the character to be like, what do we, how does that happen? Like, does he need to, does he need to, answer for that? Like, it's a question I would like to see posed, at least. And I think that, well, also, Clea being introduced, it's obvious why they did that, based on the most recent comic arc, Death of Doctor Strange. She's now Sorcerer Supreme. I love Wong and Doctor Strange's relationship. I think it's really fun to watch the two of them on screen. The two of them really seem to enjoy working together from the movie, where you can tell that the two of them are having a blast when they do that. just it would be I don't think I mean the only problem I have with the movie is the exposition, and the exposition being as heavy as it is throughout the movie, trying to set up things and explain things and all of that, where we need to see backstories for all these things, and it would have been interesting to see that play out a little bit less I don't want to say less handholdy, but less dumped on us. Like, I don't want to, like, I don't think we necessarily needed to have entire scenes of just explaining what everything is. I mean, especially, look, at the time the movie came out, and when this movie was locked and production was finished, they didn't need to, they wouldn't have known that No Way Home would have taken off the way it did. So I can't fault them for not being like, well, No Way Home did great. So what about that? The other thing I really liked is the biopunk feel of the universe that the Illuminati's from. I really love that look and feel. And I guess I hope we get, more cool things like that. If we're going to continue to play with the multiverse, I'd like to see the multiverse get played with in a meaningful way rather than get played with in a superficial kind of thing. But yeah, America's going to be here to stay. And then when America ends off this movie, you can tell why Ned gets the power to do magic randomly in No Way Home, because it is fairly obvious she was probably intending to have that role in No Way Home before the release date for Multiverse of Madness got pushed back to accommodate the director change and finishing the effects and all of that. All around, it's a great experience. Definitely worth watching if you're, into this kind of thing. And if you're not into this kind of thing, I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast for this long. It is so interesting, and it's just a very well done movie. I mean, and look, the exposition if the exposition is the biggest problem that this movie has, then it's a pretty solid entry. If that's the biggest problem. So we'll wrap up there for today. And Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will be playing in theaters until a few months at least. So until then, until our next episode, which will be The Girl from Plainville tomorrow morning when I'm on my way to work, or actually I'm going to do The Flash first, and then The Girl from Plainville tomorrow evening, or tomorrow afternoon. So until then, have a great rest of your week.